Professional real estate investors are a different breed. We're not afraid to go all in and take educated risks to build stronger businesses and help our families live better lives. This is the Flip Nerd Professional Real Estate Investor Show, and I'm your host, Mike Hambright. Each week, I host a new episode live and bring you America's top real estate investors as guests. Let's start today's show. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. Excited to be here today with Glenn Williams. We're going to talk about more efficient rehabbing. He's rehabbed a lot of houses. I've rehabbed hundreds of houses. You start to learn a few things along the way. Mostly what you learn is what not to do. Those are some of the best lessons of how to kind of move forward. But that's what we're going to talk about today is more efficient rehabbing. Glenn, glad to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. We made a little joke. You're joining us from Venice. So
I kind of wish. Can't do that now, but beautiful city.
Yeah. So you operate in the Minneapolis area, and of course, a little different than Venice up there.
Yeah. It'll be snowy soon. I actually had to wear a windbreaker a couple days ago. A little premature for that, but that's how it's gone this year. A little funny.
Yep. It's a strange year all around. So
it is.
But excited to share this with everybody today. We're actually live right now in the Flip Nerd Professional Real Estate Investor group. And so we actually, if you're joining us right now live, glad you're here. You could chat some questions down below. If you're joining us afterwards, you should join the Professional Real Estate Investor group. If you go to flipnerd.com/professional, it'll redirect you to the group and you can request to join if you're not already a member. So Glenn, efficient rehabbing, maybe get into, because I know you didn't start off as an efficient rehabber, and I know you've been investing for a long time. So tell us kind of how you got started in real estate investing.
Got started. I'm an old timer. I got started 25 years ago, doing rental properties. I had a day job and bought a duplex, lived in one side, rented out the other. Bought several properties over I don't know, 7-8 years period, something like that.
Yeah.
Then decided to leave my day job and go into real estate full time. I was a real estate agent. I'm a broker now, and start doing some wholesaling type stuff and agent work, and then didn't like what was happening towards the end of the 2000s, so I actually went back and got a day job. Kept my real estate license. In 2012, I decided, okay, I'm ready to kind of jump back in. I took my lumps in the crash years and had some challenges with that, like anyone who was actually active at that time.
Yep.
Felt like I was in a good position to get started again in 2012, got started again, and been full-time again, rehabbing houses ever since.
Yeah, that's awesome. So as a rehabber, you've learned some things along the way. So talk a little bit more about I guess we're going to kind of get into detail. I don't want to steal our thunder from it, but just, once you start to look back on some of your deals and you realize when this is one of the problems that we have as real estate investors is, usually our margins are pretty high. And so it covers up a lot of sins, right? But you start to look and you're like, oh, I still made 20 grand, 30 grand, 40, whatever it might be. But you look back and you're like, yeah, but I could have made another 10 on that if I had just done this right. And you're like, and I did this many deals this year. And next thing you know, you're talking about 6 and 7 figures over time. Right. And so it just forces you to like, okay, let's get serious about this. Right. So kind of talk about like how you got to that point. Cause I'm sure it was through some war wounds that kind of brought that to your attention, right?
Yeah. I mean, I got started and I rehab a couple, 2-3 a year, and then just kind of grown since then. But one of the big kind of aha moments when I really think back on it was how much time and energy and everything I wasted on my bunch of early rehabs just because I didn't have things well planned. My second rehab, I got done with the project. I realized in the envelope that with all my receipts, I had 72 receipts personally, not what the contractor bought, 72 receipts personally from trips to Home Depot, Lowe's, Menards, Sherwin-Williams, all that type of stuff.
Yep.
And when I sit there and think about it, between going to the store, going to the property either before or after going to the store, I probably spent about 150 hours driving around, going to stores, going to the property for that single project.
Yep.
And obviously looking at it, that is horribly, horribly inefficient.
Yep.
So I look at it that way going, that kind of sucks. I mean, I got better over time incrementally, but just the fact that I didn't coordinate anything, didn't organize anything on the front end, I wasted so much time and so much money just kind of doing it that way that I look back and kind of just shake my head going, wow, I didn't know a thing about what I was doing.
Right.
But like you said, I mean,
You're still making good money, so it's like,
still making money.
first world problems.
eight 8 years of an appreciating market here. So, I mean, so that covers up a lot.
Yep.
But yeah, looking back on it, I mean, I think about the last bunch of years and said, I mean, I've probably, by doing things poorly and inefficiently, and I've probably lost 5 figures on every property over what I could have done or could have been if we had done it in an organized fashion and properly up front. So, I
Yeah.
mean, I sit here and go, I've only lost $250,000 or so over the last handful of years. It's like, that's no big deal.
Yeah. You sure like to have that in your pocket instead of all those receipts, right?
That would be that would be
Yeah.
a much better position to be in. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then, I used to do that too. Of course, if you have multiple projects going on, because we ramped up really fast when we first started back in '08, and we would be commonly rehabbing 5, 6, 7 houses at a time. And so, like you said, I don't even go to house anymore when I rehab now. My contractor, we have a couple text messages and things are run way more lean. Not everybody operates that way. But at the time, I would have this pockets full of receipts or stacks of receipts. I don't even necessarily know which house they're from. It's a mess. So I know that you believe this. It all starts with kind of that upfront planning, like just being organized from the beginning. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's the biggest thing that I've really learned here is, I mean, I hired my project manager about 10 months ago. So, I mean, I was making these mistakes even into last year. So, I mean, been doing it for years. I was still making mistakes because I was a one-man show. I was doing everything in my business. And if you get busy and you're doing everything in your business, you're doing everything inefficiently. I mean, you're not doing any of it to the level that it necessarily needs to be at in order to be really effective and efficient
Yeah.
and successful. So once I brought her on, uh, she got trained. And I told her, okay, bring the system back and implement it here. So all of a sudden we started doing complete scopes of work. I mean, I kind of played around with scopes of work before, but I never had complete scopes of work. I didn't have full material lists. I didn't put together timelines. I mean, I was pretty much talking to the contractors and they were in charge of things more than I was just because I didn't put the plan together up front to hand to them and actually take charge of the project. I was just too busy running around doing everything to
Yeah.
properly plan and manage the project.
Yep. Yep. So what are some of the things that if you look back now, if folks are listening to this right now, they're like, that really resonates with me. Like I'm doing everything myself and I'm not doing any planning. I'm just having a contractor give me a bid. If it sounds good, let's go. So what's some kind of, I guess, kind of high level guidance you can give people that are flying by the seat of their pants, if you will, with their rehabs, of just some easy kind of ways to kind of tiptoe and get started into this, baby steps.
The biggest thing is to really know upfront what you're going to do. What is the full scope of work that you're going to do? And I mean, you may not know, and especially if you're a newer investor, you may not know completely. Like you may not know exactly what the fits and finishes are on the project that you want to have there.
Yeah.
But you can have an idea of, okay, well, we're painting the ceiling, painting all the walls, and we're painting the trim and not a different color. You may not know what those colors are, but you at least know what the scope of that is.
Right.
And just actually spending the time to actually spec that out, scope that out, everything like that is just a huge first step. Because one of the mistakes that I've made and I mean, a lot of people kind of doing low volume or really new to it is they go out, they get a bunch of quotes from contractors, they're not quoting the same thing. You're sitting there, you call 10 and 5 show up and 3 give you quotes. and it's a week and a half before anyone gives you a quote. And the 3 quotes are all different because the scopes of work are different.
Yep.
And in the meantime, you got them out there after you've already purchased the property. So you're sitting on it for 2 weeks before you even consider any work starting. I mean, that's all real waste. That's all real money that you wind up losing right up front.
Yeah, that's the biggest opportunity here is the holding cost, right? Is to kind of eliminate that, right?
Yeah, one of the little tricks that we use, I mean, I don't know that it's a trick, but when we're buying a house, we tell the sellers that we need to get in there twice before we close on the property. I mean, we don't, when I walk through a property, I'm the acquisitions guy. That's my inspection. I don't do additional inspections or anything like that. Other people do it different. I don't. But then I tell them I need to come through with my project manager once. We're going to take some measurements. We're going to walk through. We're going to figure out exactly what's going on. She puts together the full scope of work. Then she walks through it one more time with contractors, making sure we're all on the same page with everything, so that the day we close, that next day, the dumpster's there, we're trashing out, we're ordering materials, everything like that. So we have as little downtime as possible. Just one of the things that was really eye-opening to me, and I'd recommend a lot of people do, is we kind of all think we're a little better than we really are. So I recommend people count on their projects how many days from the day you buy it to the day you list it, and just really figure out those numbers. Because when I sat down and looked at that spreadsheet of all my projects, I mean, almost wanted to cry because it's so long, but I didn't realize it until I was really monitoring and looking at that.
So you track it, right? Yeah. That becomes one of your KPIs. Is, a lot of people look at their hold period, but it's usually from the time you sell it. But that doesn't always tell you how efficient you are with your rehab. Sometimes a deal falls through, or other things that weren't really for the rehab part. So yeah, that's pretty good.
Right. Or even if you're getting really good with the rehab portion, it's how long till you get started. Yeah. And if you're sitting on it a while until it gets started, it doesn't matter if it's a day on rehab or a day sitting waiting to rehab. It's a day of hold costs. That's money out of your pocket that didn't need to be out of your pocket. Yeah, exactly. So are there any specific systems you use that you're using to kind of document and track this, or? We've utilized a variety of different systems. We're transitioning right now. We're transitioning to REIPM, which is Roddy's rehab system. Actually, we've been kind of talking to his developer quite a bit, kind of helping to build it out even more, based off of kind of some of the functionality that we would really like to see on it. We're transitioning over to that one, but prior to that, we were using a few different things to manage. One, Asana for all the tasks that we need to do, and my assistant would, every new property, transition over the list of here's everything that we need to do. Then for all our team communication, we do it all through Slack. Create a new Slack channel for every property, so we can track everything in one spot. We're not wondering, was that call, was it a text, was it an email? All of our communication about a property is in one channel in Slack, so we can always find it. You have your contractors using Slack too? We do not. No. Okay. That's always the tricky part. Our goal will be to have them using the using kind of the communication piece of REIPM. But again, we're transitioning to that now. But then we also used. At one point, we used house flipping spreadsheet. We actually used Flipper Force, which is made by the same guys who did the house flipping spreadsheet. It's just online. So we utilize that tool for kind of managing the project too. That's so awesome. There's a lot of stuff out there to help you kind of put it together. But the challenge is a lot of people, even if they know they're supposed to do it, they don't do it. It's easy to go off and say, all right, I need to go look for the next deal. And you negotiated hard, you marketed well, you got a good deal, and you made your money there, and then you lose it on the rehab. You lose it on the hold time, or you lose it on actually spending too much on the rehab.
Right. Right. Yeah. Those are great tools. We use Slack. I run a few different companies, and we use one of them. We have, gosh, probably 30 some employees now. Everything's in Slack as much as we possibly can. Like it's got to be in there just
That
because, email is just insane to communicate through. You lose stuff and calls, it's not documented anywhere. So Slack's an amazing tool. Yeah.
it really is. I mean, if folks are not using that, I mean, just implementing that will do a lot for someone. Just
Yep.
implementing that one tool, it's so powerful to have the communication in one channel rather than spread out everywhere.
Yep. So as you start to put some systems and processes in place to kind of better manage contractors, inevitably there's some contractors you have that like they don't want to hear that, right? They're like, I know what I'm doing. I don't need that. I don't need this. And so how do you kind of find contractors that are open-minded, or how do you transition the ones that you have to say, look, we're trying to get more efficient here, which sometimes efficiency means costing them more money, maybe because there's not as many change orders and stuff that they're going to hit you up with down the line. But I don't think most contractors look at it that way necessarily. It's just sometimes change is hard, and for the contractor type person, it's maybe especially hard because they do it their way usually.
It it is a challenge, and I mean, I've got some contractors I've used for years that once we're starting to do it in a more regimented manner, it's a matter of no, we need to get this done in 2 months, and it used to take 3.
Yeah.
And and here's the full scope of work, and here's where our pricing is. But the thing is, if you're going to take it seriously, if you're going to actually treat it like a business and run a rehabbing company, then change needs to happen. And some folks will come along and play ball, and some will not. And you just need to be the person in charge of it. If you're not sure if you're in charge of the project, you're not in charge of the project. And if you're not in charge of the project, it's not going to end up well for you.
Yeah.
So that's the big thing, is just being crystal clear on what the scope is and everything like that. And especially in dealing with new contractors, you have all that stuff. You have your SKU list, you have your timelines, you have your scope of work, and you can kind of present it to them and say, here's what it is. I mean, how does this work for you? I mean,
Right.
does this look reasonable? Are there any challenges with that? It's a lot easier to get better pricing that way than just having them walk through and they know full well you don't know what you're doing.
Sure.
I mean, it's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
with us, with finding contractors, I mean, we're in a bunch of investor Facebook groups, and whenever anyone's asking, okay, do you have someone for this? Do you have a plumber? Do you have an electrician? Everything like that. I mean, my project manager, my assistant, and I are always in there just trying to snipe those contracts and say, at least they've worked to some degree, possibly with an investor before.
Yeah.
So we at least want to engage in a conversation with them to see where they're at, what they're trying to do, and see if there might be a fit. And then the other thing that we really do is anytime I see a property or hear of a property that someone's rehabbing or has rehabbed, we check to see who pulled permits on those. Because if there's a plumber who already works with an investor and an established investor or established rehabber, well, I want to have a conversation with that person because they already know that investors are not paying top dollar prices.
Right.
There's some degree of potential reasonableness in their pricing and expectations and all of that. And if we can show them a really strong, solid process that we have put together for them, they may say, okay, well, this will work out well for me because I don't have to not know when the job is happening, when I'm showing up, this, that, or the other thing. It's pretty certain. There's always changes and there's always surprises, but they have a good level of certainty if you have it well planned out.
Yeah. Yeah. So now that you have a project manager, are you still using a general contractor, or is that project manager managing all the different trades?
We are just, I mean, literally right now in the process of forming our own construction company.
Okay.
So I mean, we're going to have the general under a different company of ours. will
Okay.
be the general contractor and able to pull the building permits.
Yeah.
So I mean, my investing company will hire that company who will hire all the subs.
Yeah. Yeah. Truthfully, that's mostly what the general contractor is doing, is coordinating all the activities and material flow and stuff like that, right? So once you get that down, it's logical, and you have a dedicated project manager. It's kind of, that fills that void, right?
Yeah, it makes everything a lot easier, and I've gotten to a point now where pretty much I'll walk the property with my project manager. I mean, I walk the property to buy it, and then I walk the property with my project manager to go off and work through the scope of work and everything like that.
Yeah.
I get pictures multiple times a week of where we're at with things at the project,
Yeah.
just through Slack, so I can see what's going on. But then, honestly, I I don't see the property. I don't go to the property again, maybe ever.
Mm.
Um, I'll typically go just because I'm a broker and I list my own stuff right now. My
Okay.
assistant's getting licensed and we'll be listing it soon. But I may go at that point, or I might not even go and I'll just list the property. So
Yeah.
I don't have to go.
Right.
So we're at a point now where my job is to fill the pipeline.
Yep.
I mean, once I get something in the pipeline, I can just kind of hand it to my project manager, who's amazing at what she does, as just pass it off. Here's the next one. Here's the next widget to put on the conveyor belt.
Yep.
And you know what we do. You've experienced enough of them already with us. You've got a clue of how we're doing things and all of that.
Yep.
At some point, hopefully, it'll just be a matter of I won't even have to walk through to put together a scope of work.
Right.
Just because it's like, you know how we do this. I don't need to be there.
Right.
But we're not quite there yet. We will.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. So any other tips for people that are trying to get started and get more efficient, trying to move down that path of how do they make that transition early on? A lot of stuff we said, I think we talked about here, makes a ton of sense. Sometimes people are like, well, what do I do first? Like, what's the first thing I should do? So what do you recommend? Any other little tips or tricks you could share?
I mean, honestly, the better you organize it on the front end, the better everything is going to go. I mean, I know people, when I've posed the question in a variety of Facebook groups over the last month or so, saying, what's your biggest challenge in the rehabbing business? And almost invariably they say contractors. And the reason I think they say contractors is because when push comes to shove on all the projects, the contractors are the ones who are in charge, because you're not in charge because you don't know how to be in charge.
Yeah.
You haven't put together the plan. They've put together the plan for you. They've put together the timeline. They've put together the budget, and they've put together your scope of work for you. So effectively, they're managing the project and not you.
Yeah.
And that's just going to be more costly up front. It's going to take longer. Invariably, there are change orders, and a change order that costs 10 grand will have cost 3 grand in the original scope of work. So it's really spending the time up front and putting together documentation. And the single biggest thing is the scope of work.
Yeah.
I mean, you can have the conversation about, okay, what are the timelines, and kind of work on your SKUs. And if you're newer, you may not even have your list of SKUs, and you may be doing something like I used to do, where each project is a little bit different. I didn't use the same tile everywhere, the same doors, the same hardware, the same everything like I do now. But back then it was what's on sale. Okay,
Yeah.
where's the deal here? Where's the deal there? So you may not know your SKUs up front, but getting a clear scope of work is number one priority, so that you can hand that off to folks and have contractors through and get a number of bids, and they're all working from the same point.
Yep.
They're not all making up their own thing.
Yeah, that's good. Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, Glenn, if folks wanted to reach out to you or get a hold of you one way or another, what's a good way to connect?
Well, we're easiest way is probably going to be email, and with all the stuff we're talking about project management, we're actually launching a company to help folks with the project upfront planning and organizing part of projects.
Yep.
the website is reiprojectmanagement.com. And we don't have the website up yet. It's a coming soon page, but it's coming up soon. But someone can reach me through there, or my direct email address is Glenn with 2 N's at reiprojectmanagement.com.
Awesome.
And honestly, with what we're doing, I figure the folks who can benefit the most are really the folks who are newer or do a smaller volume of houses. If someone's doing 10 plus houses a year or something like that, they should probably learn to do the whole thing themselves. I mean, it just makes sense because they're doing that type of volume.
Yep.
But someone newer or smaller volume, kind of like I was for a whole bunch of years, I look back and wish and wish I had $200,000 more in my pocket from actually having done it right.
Yep, no doubt. Awesome. Well, Glenn, thanks again for joining us today. Thanks for sharing some of your insights.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm happy to be here. Glad to be a part of the group. I enjoy the insights I get from being in there.
Good. It'll only get better with time. So awesome, everybody. Hey, thanks for joining us today on the Flip Nerd Professional Real Estate Investor Show. Again, if you haven't yet joined our private Facebook group for we really broadcast this show in there, and it's more experienced real estate investors sharing their stories, tips, and tricks, and knowledge, and maybe helping each other with getting over war wounds and other issues. I guess we all have some issues. But you can go to flipnerd.com/professional. We'll redirect you to the Professional Real Estate Investor Network group in Facebook. You can access 7 years of shows. We have over 1,500 shows on flipnerd.com. Simply by going to flipnerd.com, there's a shows button there where you can get access to this and all of our other shows. And if you want to watch these live, we broadcast them in the Facebook group, generally one a week. So appreciate you guys a bunch. We'll see you on the next show.
Thanks for joining me on today's episode. There are 3 ways I help successful real estate investors take their businesses and their lives to the next level. First, if you're in search of a community of successful real estate investors that help one another take their businesses to the next level, and a life-changing community of lifelong friends, please learn more about my Investor Fuel Real Estate Mastermind by visiting investorfuel.com. If you'd like a cutting-edge solution for the very best done-for-you lead generation on the planet, where we're handling the lead generation for many of America's top real estate investors, please learn more at theinvestormachine.com. And lastly, if you're interested in a free online community of professional real estate investors that isn't full of spam, solicitations, and newbie questions, please join my free Professional Real Estate Investor Facebook group by visiting flipnerd.com/professional.